this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to create a single crystal spiral in Kumihimo. Now, I have a finished example here, and you can see that it just kind of looks like these little shimmery diamonds, which is just so beautiful and lovely. So, I have started another piece here, but there's a couple differences, and I want to talk to you about how that is set up. Now, you can see that because I've put my piece down, I have my 3 up and my 1 down, as you know I always tell you to do. But what's really nice is that, again, you can just sort of see that they just sparkle really beautifully, and they just kind of spiral around. So the basic thing here that I want to show you is that because I've started it, and I'm going to kind of lift mine off the table just a little bit so I can get some of that tension. What I want to say here is I'm going to go ahead and release this one, and you're going to see that little bicone drop down to the center there. Let me just sort of recenter mine now that I've picked it up. There we go. So it's going to drop down to the center. Now this is where you got to really just make sure that it is tucked nice and underneath and it's not coming over this strand here, between the 32 and the 31, when you bring that down to your corner here. And then you can just rotate and continue to add your beads. So you do have to be a little careful, and you'll notice that. Let me just make sure that I have mine set there. There we go. You'll notice that on my piece here, at the bottom, you can see that it's much tighter where I just started my spiral. And then you can see those beads sort of separate just a little bit, but I'm using some pink thread to kind of get around that, so you'll notice that your tension will open up a little bit to accommodate these 5mm crystal bicones. So that is just something to keep in mind. Don't freak out. It just happens, but try to keep your tension as good as you can. Now, the other thing that I want to point out here, and let me come to the other end here. I'm just going to sort of flip that over so you can see. So the other difference is that on this one, I'm using 32 crystals on 1 strand. So when you set up your Kumihimo, you're only going to do it on 1 strand. I'll talk about that here in just a moment. But as you're setting yours up, what I wanted to do is I wanted to leave a little bit of space before I started to add that first crystal. So this is where my first crystal comes into play, and I wanted to show you along a ruler so that it could be really easy for you, and I hope this helps you guys size a little bit. So you can see that it is just over about a 1/2 inch there before that first crystal comes into play. So that's that, and I'll just show you kind of on centimeters too. So it's about 1.5 centimeters before that first crystal comes in. So if you can just see that. So on this one, I added 4 beads in the beginning and 4 beads on the end. And this is where I suggest you sort of adjust your sizing. Now, to adjust that sizing, let me just lay that down there fully in camera, so you can see end to end. Now, without the clasp, so I'm lining it up here, without the clasp, it's going to give me about a 7-inch bracelet there. So when I add the clasp, it's going to be closer to 8 inches. But if you remember, every time I talk about Kumihimo and the sizing, that inner diameter, especially because we have these crystals popping in on us, that inner diameter is going to be closer to 7 inches or so. So I hope that helps a little bit with sizing. So on this one, what I did is, so we have our first crystal and it's much closer to the end there. And this is where I only added 2 beads to start. So this is how small it is when you're adding 2 beads extra to each strand. So again, you're looking at a little bit closer to like 3/4 of an inch there. Actually, I'm sorry. Let's look here. I was like, the centimeters might be better on this one. So yeah, so it's about 1 centimeter. So it's very, very minimal. Now, the other thing you could do as well is if you get to a point where you're running out of crystals, you can see I still have a whole bunch here. Let's say you get down to about this point and you're like, oh, you know what? That seems like a little bit too much. You can absolutely just eliminate some crystals and put back on these 2 little seed beads, and that can help you with some sizing as well. So when you're looking, roughly, again, from crystal to crystal here, you're looking at about just under 6 inches, really. So you can just sort of see just under 6 inches. So that should be about the length of your crystal. Now with Kumihimo, again, you can kind of stretch it, and your tension can have a little bit of a factor to do with that. That's why I say to sort of adjust as you go. If you're unsure, once you've made one, you can make a whole bunch and then you'll know. But that's what I'm trying to do here for you, is I'm trying to make a couple different styles. But when you set up your Kumihimo, and go ahead and kind of put my cords out to the side here. Again, you can see that I only have one that has the strands of crystals, and that will give you this particular little sort of every other spiral. You can do it where you have an entire spiral. You can do different colors. It's entirely up to you. We have lots of different options for you, but this one in particular, when I started out, this is the strand that was between my 31 and 32. So when you set up your disc, you're going to have your strands on either side of each of the dots, and this strand started over here. And now when you do your little piece here, when you do it without the beads, just make sure that you get all the way back and you set that up again so that, you know, as you're doing your weaving, that's why my piece here is a little bit extra long, you'll see, because I wanted to, when I started to add the beads, I wanted that to be right back up here. In some of our other videos and in some of our kits, in fact, you'll actually see me label my bobbins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If that helps you, feel free to do so. That way you can sort of adjust that as you go. But that is just a couple of little tips to get this style of Kumihimo. I hope this actually helps you guys with your sizing. I know that is probably, you know, really when you're starting out, that's the most frustrating thing, is to know exactly how things are going to be sized. But I wanted to try to give you a guide, show you 2 different examples and 2 different colors as well. So I have that beautiful navy blue one and then this pink and silver one. So head on over to Beadaholique.com and you'll see the full tutorials here on how to do this Kumihimo. So you'll be able to find even more tutorials and videos by heading over to Beadaholique.com. And if you're new to our YouTube channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button below to get all the latest from Beadaholique.